gene D is coming before gene B. So this simple logic cannot be true, okay? So if you do that now with more and more genes, with all the 8 conditions, and again you have to do permutation tests and so on, then you end up at the end of the day with a temporal logic where you say gene A comes always before gene B, therefore there's a chance that gene A influences gene B. Now of course you put more knowledge into it, like transcription factor knowledge, regulatory genes and so on. The second is event strings alignment. This is a typical representation of transcriptome data. Now, you would ask, this is one gene, this is a second gene, they behave very similar, so maybe the one, if it comes earlier, influences the second. This is the guilt by association principle, but there is no other concept. What we do is we digitalize this, we just say this is, we don't go for the exact curves, but we just go for rising, constant, and falling, and then can apply very simple DNA-based algorithms just to look for the similarity, give it a scoring, which you of course train based on existing knowledge, and then of course in this way reconstruct networks. Okay, I'll jump over this. So then you end up with these 9 networks, you have transcription factors, non-transcription factor genes, metabolites, and so on and so on. There's really a lot of statistics, a lot of programming, and a lot of permutation testing. We probably have many false negatives and hopefully not so many false positives. I'll jump over this and come to the final part. So just to give you one example, we have transcription factors, lipid metabolites, genes, lipids, and primary metabolites. So we build up a model, a network model, where we integrate all this data, and it consists of 53 transcription factors, 21 lipid metabolism genes, 14 lipids, and 40 primary metabolites. They are all connected in a very dense and, at least statistically, highly robust network, statistically. Now, you then would like to ask, of course, this is hypothesis creation. Now we would like to ask the question, well, is there any biological novelty in this data? So then, of course, you have to go back to the lab. So just zooming in into one part here, this is just the number of transcription factors, and this NUC78 is a new transcription factor, which has not been understood. If you look at this in the position of the network, you find that 5 downstream genes are involved which are involved in lipid metabolism are downstream of these transcription factors, 5 out of a total of 17 genes. So this would suggest there is a clear overrepresentation, therefore, of lipid metabolism genes in the downstream of this transcription factor. So you would come up with the hypothesis that this transcription factor somehow involves lipid metabolism, right? Okay, now you test this. How do you test this? Of course, genetically. So what we did is we did transgenic lines where we overexpressed and downregulated this gene, and then did metabolic and lipidome analysis. And just to show you, this is the wild type, and this is the overexpression line. So there's if you look at the lipids, for example, there's a massive change, right? This is very different from this one, okay? So fine, you're happy, great. So I do see a change in lipid metabolism, so therefore this transcription factor is involved in lipid metabolism. Well, unfortunately, we also look at primary metabolites, and as you see here, also in primary metabolism, there's also a lot of changes. So now you have to introduce, again, the distance measure. What is a bigger distance? What is a kind of a distance, a quantitative distance measure? What is the primary change? And one way, it's not a good way, but one way of doing this is a principal component analysis again. Well, I'm sure you cannot see this, but these are the scores, and this is for the lipids. You see all of the lines are popping up here, and just this one is here, so there's a large distance. Whereas for the primary metabolism, these are here, and all the rest are also distributed. So this would suggest, therefore, that indeed the primary influence is on lipid metabolism. But you see in how many quantitative problems you run once you really try to be not that we are comprehensive, but more comprehensive when you describe the system. Okay, so I have no summary slide, but just what I try to outline is that systems concept, of course, as said again, is by not meant at all to prove causality. This can only be achieved by chemical genetics or genetics. However, I think it's a great way of looking at data and looking at the system and deriving new ideas and new hypotheses, which of course, unfortunately or fortunately, you have to test in the lab. So that's what I wanted to show to you. So final slide will just be the data, will just be the people. So this is from our skiing retreat, and all the metabolomics has been established and done by Patrick Javeliska and Eckert, and the systems gene regulatory network is essentially Genji Szymanski, a postdoc, and Camila Caldana, Brazilian postdoc, and Matt Hanna, who's now leading the systems biology at Bayer Crop Science. He essentially devised the experiment. Okay, thanks for your attention.